with our spirits. So there's a constant engagement between the Spirit of God and your spirit. When you see a Christian that is confused, a Christian that cannot build anything with the Lord, the Christian is suffering a disease called spiritual death. There's a disconnect between the Christian spirit and the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God is not alive within their own spirit. So they are blind, they are deaf. They are given to all kinds of strange appetites. No government, no control. They live anyhow, watch anything, eat anyhow, dress anyhow, talk anyhow. The truth about it is that if you find a believer that does not have disciplines around their life, no true Christian is a loose cannon. No true believer. None. Somebody that just sleeps anyhow, you know, anything that is any popular series, movie that is available, they've watched it. Even before the people released it, they found a way to watch it. They just live anyhow, eat anyhow, crack all kinds of jokes. That entity, I don't know whether it's a human being, that entity is not a Christian. Go and read church history. Christians have never been loose people. There's a sense of responsibility that comes upon you when you get born again. When you realize that you are a walking headquarters of the divine. You are literally carrying God on your inside. You are his representative on the earth. There's a sense of responsibility that even when you sit down and time is just flying and you are idle, you'll be feeling guilt. Something will be telling you that what kind of life is this? You are just wasting time. This time that when it passes like this, you can't get it back. No genuine believer lives in such wantonness. None. So one of the ways to even check somebody's spiritual health is find out what they do with their spare time. Find out how they order their lives. Find out who their friends are. Find out the kind of things that they love. If the protocols of holiness have been activated on your soul, your options become limited. Options in life, options in destiny, options in marriage. The road begins to shrink the deeper you go into God. The deeper you go into God, the road shrinks. You don't have many options. So when you meet a Christian and say, I don't do that, it's not that the person is trying to live a boring, useless life that people will say they are doing ginger. It's just that the spirit on the inside will begin to regulate you. And you see, one of the ways you will know that that regulation is becoming effective is that you will hate this world. You know, you love the world. You are obsessed with this world. This world is like gold. It glitters. James made it clear. Friendship with the world is enmity with God. You can't have both. You will find out that you will hate the world. Hate it. And it's not something you are faking. It's not that you are faking it. You will just be scrolling on Facebook and see something and say, what is this? What? How is this supposed to make somebody laugh now? This. What is this? And then you look at it, it has 5 million views. A lot of sick people are roaming around. But they don't know they are sick. Something is terribly wrong with the software that is running man. It's terribly wrong. And this is why, even though the church is growing in numbers, we don't have people like Frances Habigal. When you listen to her hymns, she said, take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee. I read her biography at least maybe 17 years ago. And when I read that woman's biography, I told myself, if a human being can find God like this, I will find God. People said that when she walked into a room, it was like God was literally present with her. It's like you'll be sensing that there is a third presence in the room. My mentor, Charles G. Finney, I read in one of his books that God, when God encountered him, God began to pour into his heart the love of God. He said as God was pouring the love of God into his heart, he screamed, he said, stop! He said, lest I die from love. It was intense. That's how real God was to men that walked with him before us. The man I speak about, Finney, could come into a place, and when he enters into a place, from what the biography I read, conviction will strike an entire village. I'm not saying these men were perfect, but they found a way to genuinely host God. They were fulfilling their design. But we came up and we said, that Christianity is boring. We need to do Suya Sunday. Suya. We need to come for suya Sunday. We are hungry, oh, give us suya. So we come for suya. We turned praise and worship meetings into jamborees. This thing used to pain me. I can't stop talking about it because I see things online, I see church services, and I weep. Is God in this thing we are doing? Is he in this thing? Nobody say you should not dance, oh. But why is it that your dance is not sacred? Why is it that if we put your dancing side by side with a naked prostitute who dances for the world, we can't tell the difference? In fact, you copied from her. It would have been an abomination. I don't have the time to show you in Leviticus that it was possible for an Israelite to go and sell himself to a Gentile. He goes to sell himself because he does not have food to eat. He now sells himself to a Gentile. The Bible says the only salvation for that Israelite is Jubilee. Jubilee. And in Jubilee, not everybody can save him. He said the one that will save him must be kin to him. And he must be somebody that can go to the beginning of his slavery to pay the money he owes up to 50 years. This is why Jesus had to become a man. Because man by himself sold himself to the devil. Jesus is the only one that can go as far back as your past and pay the debt that you did not owe. What we are doing now is we are making a mockery of redemption. Circumcised men are going to Gentiles to sell themselves as slaves. A Christian will do a movie. The director is Christian. The producer is Christian. He or she does not want to call it Christian movie because he wants to reach the whole world. Then you that is watching it, you'll be wondering, what is all this nudity? What is all this nakedness in the movie? It is produced by a believer. A Christian will own a business. A business. That business will be a platform for devils. You go there, you are hearing the same songs you hear in a club in the night. It's a platform for devils, and it's owned by a Christian. We don't know the holiness of God. We don't know what it means to be separate unto God. That's why evangelism in our generation is the weakest it has been for years. Because you see, the most potent force of evangelism is not the one you are walking on the road with megaphone. The most potent force of evangelism is the proof of a transformed life. Your neighbors can say, this girl is different. Have you heard people say that to him before? I don't see Christians, but this one, she's different. What's the difference? Her life matches her words. Her profession is not a lie. In her daily living, they can see that. Kai. If the girl tells you, this thing is 5 naira, you can die for it, even without knowing. Truth on her lips is golden. She will rather die than give in to lust and immorality. She will rather die. Let everybody around her be fornicating. They go for training and everybody brings their boyfriend and they are fornicating and doing everything. She will rather die than sell her soul. Every time you test her, in every point, you find out that this one has sold her soul to God. She's circumcised. The world has nothing that she wants. Christian, they pass Christian. Christian, they pass Christian. Because we have lost that sense of reverence and understanding that the man is supposed to be the location of God's presence. Every man, every true believer, they are supposed to be the location. So if people are looking for the presence, just as in the day of Israel that they went to the sanctuary, they should come to you. So territories, peoples should be affected by your presence and your touch. Things should be transformed. If they bring a Christian into a space, that space automatically should become overwhelmed with glory. But now you bring a believer into something, he may steal more than everybody that has been there before him. Bring an unbelieving sister to a brother who speaks in tongues. Give them 2 weeks alone. They've started exchanging nudes. As I just said that now, there's somebody on this row. Somebody here. And you see, tonight is different. I'm going to give you a chance to pray. There's somebody here that thing just implicated. As I said, the light just popped up here. And I knew. They are exchanging nudes. Nudes. They are slave. Slave. What is the difference? If somebody you are not married to has uncovered your nakedness, do you know that the Bible considers that thing equal to sexual immorality? I'm still a virgin, but you are sharing your nudes like puff puff. Even puff puff, they don't share puff puff like that. They don't share puff puff like that. If you want to eat puff puff, you will at least have to pay for small chops. You will pay. If you don't pay physically to buy the small chops, you will use your money to enter transport to go for the wedding. Yes. So the small chops they gave you is not free. Your transport be inside. You are sharing your nudes. They say, I love you now. Send me a picture of your breast. You are sent. That's how a pastor was exchanging his nudes with a member in church. Exchanging his nudes with a member in church. You are sent. The problem is the Christian does not recognize that I'm a mobile house for the divine. I'm the mobile house for the unseen. So if people want to experience God, to know what God is like, they went to the tabernacle, they went to the sanctuary. If people want to experience God, this is the question I have for you tonight. If your family members really want to experience God, can they experience him through you? Can they touch him through you? Can they hear him through you? Can they come into something real with him through you? One of the greatest things I found in my ministry is that if I talk about God to somebody, I've gotten this feedback many times. When I talk about God to people and I enter into that thing, people sometimes will literally weep for long periods. Somebody told me once, they said, the way you make God real, so you make me want to fall in love with God. And that thing is not because I'm special. It's because I live in a consciousness. A consciousness. I'm not in this life to drive a car. I tell God every day, the proof that I'm successful in my living is in how much of God I'm able to dispense to my generation. This is how my success will be measured. So I'm not in competition with any preacher, with anybody. I want to enter into a bus and be sitting on my own and people are crying, give me Jesus. That's how I want to live. That's how I want to live. I may not be able to travel to all the nations of the world, but if my message gets to Mainama, I want people to listen and cry, give me Jesus. That's how I want to live. It was this understanding that made Israel hallow the temple. They were very careful. That's the location where God dwells. So the Levites that did business with God realized that the man who is unclean, who lives outside the camp, and the man who is common, certain things may happen to them, because we don't have the time to read it. Time is running so fast. Certain things may happen to them that will make them unclean. So for instance, remember I told you there is unclean, there is common, then there is holy. For something to be unclean, it needs to be polluted. For something to be clean or common, it needs to be washed. For something to be holy, to be made common, it needs to be profaned. That means it needs to be deconsecrated. It needs to be declassified. It needs to be desanctified. That means you remove it from consecration. You remove it from classification. You remove it from consecration, from sanctification. Then it becomes common. So to make something unholy, you profane it. To make something unclean, you pollute it. Are you still with me? And this is the two things that Satan does. Satan's job is to profane and to pollute. That's what he does. And what is he looking to profane and pollute? No longer the sanctuary, but the man. He wants to make you profane, because if you are profane, you are useless to God. God can't use you to do anything. For God to be able to enter into covenant with you, remember where we began, you must be separated unto him. If he pollutes you, it's worse. You are useless to God, but it's even worse because you are now a host of a strange spirit. Where you are, that you are common, is just that you have been declassified.